Look at any crowd today: a school hallway, a football stadium, a shopping mall, a train station. You will see tall people everywhere: 6-foot men, tall women, teenagers towering over their parents, kids who look bigger at 15 than their great grandfathers looked at 30. Now imagine dragging one of those modern people back in time and placing him inside an ancient village. He would not just look normal, he might look like a giant. And that raises a weird question most people never ask. Why are humans taller now? Because for most of history, people were not walking around like modern athletes. Many ancient humans were shorter, thinner, and physically limited by a world that kept attacking their bodies from childhood. Not because they were weak, not because they were less human, and not because evolution forgot to finish them. They were short because their bodies were fighting a brutal war every single day. A war against hunger, a war against infection, a war against bad diets, dirty water, parasites, disease, and childhood stress. Height was not just about genetics. Height was a receipt, a record written into the bones. It showed what kind of world a child survived. And the wildest part is this: humans did not simply evolve from short to tall in a clean straight line. Sometimes we became taller, sometimes we became shorter. Sometimes civilization actually made us shrink. The same farming revolution that built cities also damaged human bodies. The same crops that created kingdoms also stole nutrients from children. And the modern height you see today is not just biology. It is food, medicine, clean water, milk, meat, vaccines, sanitation, and thousands of years of suffering finally being removed from the human body. So the real question is not just, why did ancient humans go from short to tall? The real question is, what was holding the human body back for so long? Most people imagine human history as a straight line of progress. Cavemen become farmers. Farmers become city builders. Cities become civilizations. Civilizations become modern nations. Everything gets better. Everything improves. Humans become stronger, taller, healthier. But history is rarely that simple. In fact, one of the biggest surprises archaeologists discovered is that the first farmers were often shorter than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. That sounds completely backward. Agriculture created civilization. It allowed people to settle down. It produced food surpluses. It built villages, temples, armies, markets, writing, laws, kings, and empires. So why did it make people smaller? To understand that, we have to go back before farms existed. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. Life was dangerous. There were no supermarkets, no refrigerators, no hospitals, no medicine, no guarantee that tomorrow would bring food. If you wanted dinner, you had to find it, chase it, dig it, climb for it, or risk your life to catch it. But despite all that hardship, hunter-gatherers often had something many early farmers lost: dietary variety. They hunted animals, caught fish, collected fruits, gathered nuts, dug up roots, found berries. A single group could eat many different foods across the seasons. Their bodies received protein, fats, minerals, and vitamins from many sources. They were not eating perfectly. They still faced hunger. They still faced danger. But their diet was often more balanced than the diet of the first farmers. Then farming arrived. And at first it looked like a miracle. Instead of wandering endlessly, humans could stay in one place. Instead of searching for wild food every day, they could plant seeds and wait. Instead of depending only on nature, they could produce their own food. This changed everything. Families grew, villages expanded, populations increased, civilization began. But civilization came with a hidden cost. Many early farmers became dependent on only a few crops: wheat, barley, rice, corn. These foods provided calories, and calories are important, but calories alone do not build a tall, strong body. A child does not grow tall just because the stomach is full. The body needs protein, it needs calcium, it needs iron, it needs vitamins, it needs clean water, it needs rest, it needs protection from disease. When early humans began eating mostly grain, many children received enough energy to stay alive, but not always enough nutrition to grow fully. That difference matters. Surviving is not the same as thriving. A child can survive on a poor diet, but that same child may grow shorter, weaker, and more vulnerable to illness, and the skeleton remembers. Bones are like historical documents. They record the story of childhood. They show signs of hunger, they show stress, they show disease, They show whether the body had enough resources to grow, and when archaeologists study ancient skeletons, they often find a shocking pattern. After farming began, average height declined in many places. The people who built the first settled communities were not always taller and healthier than the people before them. In many cases, they were shorter. That is the strange irony of civilization. It gave humans more control over food, but it also trapped many people inside poorer diets. It gave humans villages, but those villages brought new dangers. Because the second big enemy of height was disease. Hunter-gatherers usually lived in small, mobile groups. When people are spread out, infections have a harder time spreading. But farming brought people close together. Families lived near other families. Villages became crowded. Waste collected near homes. Water sources became contaminated. People lived close to animals. And animals brought their own diseases. Cows, pigs, goats, sheep, chickens. They gave humans food, labor, and wealth, but they also gave humans germs. This was one of the biggest biological shocks in human history. For the first time, disease could spread rapidly through large communities. Children became sick again and again. And every time a child gets sick, the body faces a brutal choice: use energy to grow, or use energy to survive. The body chooses survival, always. Growth can wait. Fighting infection cannot. So repeated infections slowed growth. Parasites stole nutrients. Dirty water weakened children. Poor diets made recovery harder. And generation after generation, average height stayed lower than it could have been. This is why height is not just a body measurement, it is a survival record. A tall body usually means that childhood had enough food, enough health, and enough protection for growth to happen. A short average population can reveal a world where children were constantly fighting invisible enemies. Hunger, disease, stress, infection, poor sanitation. This does not mean every ancient person was short. There were tall individuals in the ancient world. Genetics still mattered. Some people naturally grew taller than others. But when we talk about average height, we are not only talking about genes. We are talking about living conditions. Genes are the blueprint. Environment is the builder. You can have the blueprint for a tall house, but if the builder has weak materials, broken tools, and no time, the house will never reach its full height. Human bodies work the same way. A child may inherit genes for tall height. But if that child grows up with poor nutrition, chronic illness, unsafe water, and repeated infections, those genes may never fully express themselves. The body has potential, but the world decides how much of that potential gets unlocked. For thousands of years, much of humanity lived below its biological potential. Not because humans were designed to be short, but because the world kept stealing the resources needed for growth. Then, slowly, things began to change. Food systems improved, trade expanded. People gained access to more types of food. Some societies developed better agriculture. Animals provided milk, meat, and protein. Storage improved. Markets connected regions. But the biggest change came much later: the Industrial Revolution. At first, industrial cities were terrible places to live. Crowded, dirty, polluted, full of disease. Many workers lived in awful conditions. So height did not instantly rise. In some places, it even fell. But over time, modern systems began to remove the old enemies of growth. Clean water became more common. Sewage systems improved. Food became cheaper and more available. Transport moved grain, meat, milk, and vegetables across long distances. Doctors learned more about disease, vaccines appeared, child mortality dropped, public health improved, and slowly, children began growing up in a world that attacked their bodies less. That is when average height began to rise. Not because human DNA suddenly changed overnight, not because modern people became a new species, but because more children finally had the chance to reach the height their bodies were capable of reaching. The modern rise in height is one of the clearest signs of improved childhood conditions. When people eat better, get sick less, and survive childhood with fewer biological shocks, they grow taller. This is why the tallest populations in the world today are often found in places with long histories of good nutrition, dairy consumption, healthcare, sanitation, and stable childhood conditions. Milk mattered, protein mattered, meat mattered, clean water mattered, vaccines mattered, antibiotics mattered. Even something as simple as a child not having constant stomach infections mattered, because height is built slowly, day by day, meal by meal, year by year. A body does not become tall in one dramatic moment. It becomes tall when nothing keeps interrupting its growth. That is what modern life changed. It removed interruption. It removed hunger for more people. It removed many deadly childhood diseases. It removed some of the parasites and infections that once drained energy from growing bodies. It gave the human body more chances to finish what it started. And that is why many modern humans are taller than their ancestors. Not because we are better, not because we are more evolved in some superior way, but because we are less blocked. Ancient humans were not failed versions of us. They were humans under pressure. Their bodies were doing the best they could in a world full of limits. A child in the ancient world could be born with the potential to become tall, but then lose that potential to famine, fever, worms, dirty water, or years of poor diet. A modern child with the same genetic potential might grow much taller simply because the environment does not steal as much from them. That is the real story. Human height is not just about evolution. It is about the relationship between biology and civilization. At first, civilization made life more organized, but not always healthier. Farming fed more people, but often fed them less variety. Cities created power, but also created disease. Crowds built empires, but also spread infections. Then, after thousands of years, humans slowly solved some of the problems civilization had created. We cleaned water, improved diets, controlled disease, protected children, and the human body responded. It grew.